Conway is an idea, it's a concept whose time has come in a fundamental way. It's always been relevant. It grew out of a dissatisfaction with traditional education. It evolved over time to embrace a very strongly ecologically oriented perspective. And if you look at what's happening in education and in environmentalism in this country and around the world, you realize that the rest of the world is coming to the same conclusion that our founder and second director came to years ago, that we can do things better. And maybe what we're realizing now as a society and societies around the world is that we need to not put it off.
The news is getting out there that we have to start thinking about the landscape and the world differently, and with an inconvenient truth, and Walmart going organic and green, and people are starting to notice, and it's a great thing, because it's it's better late than never, and I think that it's not too late, to change it.
How can you go into this field and not focus on sustainability now? And it's becoming more and more of a popular thing, which is good.
The issues that people are dealing with here are the issues that the whole country is speaking about and needs to be speaking about.
Oregon recently passed a measure that said by, I think, 2020, a quarter of the power for the state was to come from renewable energy resources. Basically, that means a huge investment in millions of dollars in wind and solar technology. So for people that are designing those features, it's going to be sort of a sea change, I think.
Global climate change was kind of bleeding edge, like you were a little bit like left of center if you were talking about it, and now of course it's very mainstream, and I anticipate the same thing is going to happen over time with things like the peak oil type of situation, and even local food. I think all of this is coming.
Is it sustainable to have your little beautiful house that you've always dreamed about on the hill, or is it more sustainable to be living in a city where it may not be your dream, but you can still go out and hike and have open space?
So how do we create spaces in cities? How do we maintain spaces in cities in a way where a lot of different people are involved and get their needs met?
The Conway School has a very specific mission in the world, which is to affect positive change.
What Conway teaches, you can say, has always been relevant to the world, but I think that now there's more knowledge about it, and more people are aware of that knowledge that Conway has always been trying to teach.
We do live in that web of life, and you have to design, with the whole web in context.
There are graduates of the school who are doing work on an international level, and I think that they're having a good impact, and they're bringing their Conway sensibilities to a holistic approach to design that incorporates sustainability and environmental concerns to any project that they work on. It's just part of the way they're wired once they come to this school, I think.
The Conway grads, they have a clear sense of what they're trying to accomplish, but it's not so much about themselves as it is about this mission that we all feel will make a difference.
The word's getting out, and that's great. The more people that have this education experience, I think the better.
In this last go-around, we had many more applicants to the program than in the history of the school. And so I feel like and hope that there's a kind of shift underway. There's Al Gore's film, Inconvenient Truth. There's almost daily things in the newspaper about global climate change. There's so many things, beekeepers reporting on the mysterious destruction and loss of bees and beehives. There are enough kinds of hints there, and hopefully enough sense of optimism that maybe people are ready to more extensively deal with what the future can be. And I think that's the opportunity in the future for the Conway School, to build on everything it's been for 35 years, but then to go to accomplish new things.
Hopefully, we can not only be stewards, but educate people. I know my family, and my family, that I grew up with family, and I talk about green roofs now, and my 70-some-year-old mother, is very interested in things I've never heard her talk about before. So hopefully she'll tell her friends.
After 35 years, we've got 500 plus graduates. They're somewhat scattered around the country and in other countries. So in the way typically the world would evaluate things, it may not seem that significant. But the school is maybe it's more in terms, if you think of yeast and the way you make bread. There's yeast and there's flour. And there's a lot of flour, and there's not much yeast. But given the right conditions and time, the yeast transforms the flour. And that's my hope, and that's my observation with the Conway graduates, that they're out there in their communities affecting change. And some people may say, well, it's smallish, maybe inconsequential, but it's part of a much larger thing that too narrow a perspective of time or geography might not catch. But there's something happening in the world that's very positive. It's so easy to focus on the negative and feel like it's hard to imagine change, but the change is happening. And it's beautiful to see how Conway grads are part of that process.